Good afternoon, MTA family. I wish you all well. And it's always a pleasure just to see so many of you from our different departments coming together just to get the support that we have to offer you. Like I said, my name's Yvelle Stanford, and our team is training, development, and educational resources. We've made focusing as a goal providing the support that you need to make your work easier, to make your days easier. Honestly, we want to help you turn these tech applications into something that is not intimidating, something that you say, oh, yeah, of course we use that. Um, just 6 months ago, when we started to go to work, we didn't turn on hyperlinks. We turned doorknobs. So everything has changed. And this is me welcoming you, letting you know that we're here, and just putting you in the hands of our tech literacy specialists. So, Marites and Rafa, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Val. So let me just pass it over to Maritas now, who is also going to be with us today. Maritas, you want to say hi?
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us. So I will be your Q&A person for today. So please feel free to send me your question. Thank you and enjoy. Rafa?
Thank you, Maritas. And of course, we have another addition today. Mr. James Sanon is also going to be providing tech support for us. So, James, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. I'll be in the background trying to help out.
Thank you so much, James. All right, so let's get started right now. So you're seeing my PowerPoint presentation on the screen. Once again, let me remind you about the phone number. It's right there on screen. Also, once we start with the presentation, you can also click on the event menu, and then you click on information, and then you'll be able to see these numbers in case that you have any troubles with sound. All right, so let's get started now. So we're here today to talk about exchanging data between Access and Excel. So let me get started by sharing the learning objective for today. So today we have the following objective. So after today's webinar, participants will be able to bring in data from Excel into Access by importing data into a new table, appending data to an existing table, and creating a link to the data source. You'll also be able to just go back here and show you the second objective. You also be able to bring data from Access into Excel by importing tables into an Excel spreadsheet and creating a query to display tables in an Excel spreadsheet. So basically, we're going to start working in Microsoft Access, and working in Microsoft Access, I'm going to show you how to bring data from Excel. Three different ways or three different options you have. So I'm going to show you all of them. And then we're going to move into Access. We're going to move into Excel. And once we get to the Excel application, I will show you how to bring data now from Access into Excel. Why are we showing you this? Okay. So let me start by sharing this with you because I always get this question. When do I use Excel and when do I use Access? And it usually comes after I've been teaching one of the Access classes. So now people know about this application to store data, and they may be like, well, but I have data also in Excel. Should I bring it over to Access? Should I make my Excel file now an Access database? Or the other way around, should I turn my Access into an Excel spreadsheet? Okay. And my answer to that is that in many cases, you can end up using the two of them. Just make sure that you're using the right application for the right task. Okay. So let me go a little bit deep into it. Access is better for managing data. Access helps you keep your data organized, easy to search, and available to multiple and simultaneous users. So you know how a database could be placed on a shared drive and different people can access it at the same time. Excel, in the other hand, is generally better for analyzing data, doing calculations, producing high quality charts. Okay. So bottom line is if you use Access, to store data in Excel to analyze it, then you can get the benefits of the two programs. Okay, so I'm going to start today with the following scenario. I'm going to share with you an Access database. Let me just open up the database. You can see over here, once again, you're going to get a copy of all these files here so you can practice on your own. So let me describe this database, the purpose of this database. This database was created by a department that needs to keep track of the employees that have been attending training. Okay, so it's sort of like an internal database. They keep just for the purpose of keeping track of who took training. So there is an analyst who is going to be working on this database. He already started developing the database. And what you see on the screen right now is a form that he's going to be using for registration purposes to enter in this data. So now let's say 3 people attended a class and the analyst needs to enter those 3 employees into the database. Okay, so let me show you the process. First thing the analyst is going to do is he's going to look at the class name drop down option over here, and this he's going to look for the class. Now let's say these 3 employees took Marita's class last week. So she was teaching managing tasks with MS Planner. So he will go and pick the class, okay, and then enter the date of the class. So you see how when you're working with Access, if you create a date type of field, you automatically get this handy calendar over here that you can click on and then just make the day selection, okay? So he will select 10 because it just happened last week on September 10. And then he's going to type in the BSc ID for that particular employee. Okay. So now let's pretend the first employee over here has a BSc ID of 1038. Okay. So as the analyst enters the BSc ID, now when he moves over to the first name, and just move over there, look at this. The name of this employee already shows on the form. Now, you're wondering why this is happening. The answer is because this person's name is already on this database. Okay, so because the name is already on the database, then there is no need to retype the employee's first name, last name, email, phone number, and title. That makes sense, right? So, but remember, I said there are 3 employees. Okay, so employee number 1 is in. So now the analyst will click on the add icon over here at the bottom, and then the form will open up again. So now he can enter the second employee. Okay, now second employee, he will repeat the process. He will go and select the class name, which is Microsoft Planner. Okay. Step number 2, he will go and pick up the date. So you guys already know it happened last week. So it was September 10. Just click there and now type in the BSc ID for this employee. Okay. Now, the second employee has a BSc ID of 100, 175. Okay. So what do you guys think is going to happen once I tap out of this text box? So once I click on the first name, what are you waiting for the database to do? Give you a few seconds to think about that. So, and now let me click on the first name and see if the name, well, you may have been disappointed if you were waiting for the name to show up here. Okay, so the name didn't show up. Question, why did the name didn't show up? Okay, so I'm gonna answer that question to you by revealing this information over here on the side. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to close and cancel this entry for now, and we'll get back to it. Okay, I want you to take a look at these different objects that are also part of this Access database. Okay, because, well, once again, the class today is about exchanging data between Access and Excel. So we are assuming you are probably familiar with the 2 applications. Okay, if you're not, Okay, just so you know, we're planning to also bring some training about creating this type of databases like the one that you're seeing right now. But let me just share with you that on this particular database, besides the form that I was just using before, you notice the form over here. Okay, so let me just double click to open that form for you so you can see it. Okay, that's how I open the form, and this is how I close it. So I was saying, besides this form, there are also tables on this database. Okay, and one of those tables happens to be the names table. So if I open up the names table right now, let me share that with you. Okay, you notice that over here in this table, the first person that we enter into our database, the person with the ID 1038, Richard Brown, was already on this table, on the table names. The one that I was trying to do, 10175, is not there. Okay, so that's the reason why that information didn't populate for the employee with the BSC ID 100-175. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close here. Okay, and I'm going to go back to the attendance form. Okay, and I'm going to redo the entry over here. So once again, I'm going to pick the Microsoft Planner as a class. I'm going to select the date, which is last week, September 10. And then again, I'm going to have to retype the BSC ID 100-175. Okay, so now we know why the employee doesn't populate. Okay, so now what the analyst is going to have to do now is he's going to have to type in the name of this employee. So he's going to have to do some extra typing with this record. Okay, so first name Rafael, last name Tirado, and then the email is going to be rafaeltirado@nyct.com. Okay, and now the phone number 347-643-7209, and then the title computer specialist, and yeah, software title over here. So that's how this record is going to be entered. Okay, so in other words, there's going to be additional typing than the analyst is going to have to do on the second employee who took Microsoft Planner. Okay, but once the analyst enters all this information, he can click on the add icon or button over here, and now the data goes into the database. Okay, so let me close this registration form for now, and let's get back to our tables. Okay, so you see how the data flows on an Access database. So the new name, Rafael Tirado, with BSC ID 100-175, okay, which one of these tables will it go to? Of course, it's gonna go to TVL names. Okay, so I'm gonna open TVL names, and then you're gonna see right here at the bottom that now Rafael Tirado is part of the names table, which means that the next time that the analysts have to enter an attendance record for Rafael Tirado, then the data is going to populate because this name already exists on this table. Okay, so now let me ask you this question, because you notice that not only I was entering the name of the employee, but also the fact that the employee was attending one class, MS Planner. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to use the Q&A and give me the answer for that. Where do you think that information about the attendance gets on which table on the Access database? So I guess that's a very easy question, but I still want to get some feedback from you on the Q&A. So where does the information about Rafael Tirado taking MS Planner goes in my database? Which one of the three tables? So if you see any answers over there, Maritas, you can shout them out to us.
Yes, Rafa.
Okay.
I have few people saying table attendance,
All right.
and I have one person saying table classes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, there is really there's really not a way for you to tell unless you go and open up the table, right? Now, when I develop my databases, I use names that kind of like follow the function of the table, right? Since this record relates to attendance, so to me, it does make sense that the record goes into the attendance table. So I'm going to close the names over here, and I'm going to go over to the attendance record, table. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to show you that right here at the bottom, I got the two entries that we just did on the database. We have the 175, and I got this twice because I started doing it before. So I got 175 for Rafael Tirado managed task with Microsoft Planner, and I got also the entry for Richard. So if you say the attendance table, I say yes, that is where the data goes to, into the attendance table. Now, if you want to know what's on the classes table, I'm going to open it up. And then you see that on the classes table, I just have a list of the different classes that we teach over here. Okay, so we're clear with that. Now, let's move on, because remember, I said there are 3 employees that needs to be entered into the database. So far we have entered only 2. So the analyst will go back to the attendance registration form, and now he's going to pick, again, the Microsoft Planner. Is going to enter the date. It's going to select September 10 and a new BSC ID. Okay. So now the next BSC ID happens to be 191. Okay. So now look what's going to happen when I click on the first name. Okay. The information may not populate. So if I click on the first name, does it populate? No, it doesn't. Okay. So I guess you know the answer to it right now. It doesn't populate because this particular BSC ID, it's also not on the names table. Okay. So the analyst will have to repeat the same procedure that he did before. Add the first name, last name, and the phone number in the title. But at some point, the analyst is going to say, well, wait a minute. There is there is extra information that I'm typing over here. I wonder if we have in our department a list of all the employees with the first name, last name, email, etc. So that way I won't have to retype. I won't have to recreate data that already exists somewhere else. Okay. And this is most likely a situation that's, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to you when you're using databases. And if you ask around and you find that list, then what you need to do is you need to bring that data over to Access. So you don't have to do that data duplication. You don't have to retype data that already exists. Okay. So let me close this form over here, and let's pretend that the analyst went around and he did find that somebody had a file with information about the employees, first name, last name, etc. Okay. So, but now he found the file, and the file is on an Excel format. Okay. So this is a file that the analyst found. And once again, you're going to get a copy of all these files. So let me open up the Excel file, and I'll show you what the file looks like. Okay. So it's just, as you see over here, an Excel file with names. How many names? Let me just go over and see how many names I see on this Excel file. Let me just go all the way to the end. And then you see that there are 200 names over here. Okay, you see 201, but remember the first row over here is just for the column headings. Okay, so the analyst found what he needs. Okay, so what he's going to do now is he's going to bring this data over to Microsoft Access. Okay, so you notice that some of the names over here, like the first BSC ID that I typed was 1038, Richard Brown. So he's already here because, yes, this is the complete list of names for that particular department. Even, 175. See, that's me. That name is also on the list. The one that I was trying to enter, the last one, 191, William Miller. So he is over here. So once we bring it over to Access, then the analyst will move faster with the data entry. So let me close the file now, okay? And I'll go back to Access, okay? And I'll show you the process of bringing that data from Excel, okay? So what you need to do is you need to go over to this option over here, external data, okay? So let me just highlight it and pause over here for a second. So if you're taking notes, remember this is where you need to go. You need to go to this tab that lets you bring external data, data from an external source. And the option that you're going to use is the first one over here, okay? The one that reads new data source. So I'm going to go there, I'm going to click on new data source, and I'm going to indicate that I want to bring a file. From which application? From Excel, of course. Notice that you can bring file from other different applications. You can even bring data from another database, okay? But once again, we are in Access bringing data from Excel. So I'm going to click on Excel, okay? And this, if you remember, this is a screenshot that I was showing you on the PowerPoint presentation, okay? And I just wanted you to see that there are three different options over here once you decide to bring data from Excel, all right? So let's tackle option number one. So option number one allows you to import the data source data, import the source data, which is the Excel file, into a new table in the current database. So once again, with the data that you are bringing from Excel, you're going to be able to create a new table on your database. And that is the first option we are going to use. So the option is already selected, okay? What you still need to do, though, is you need to browse over here to specify the file location and the file name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Browse. And now I'm going to be able to browse my computer, okay? So you're looking at the files on my computer. One thing that I really like to do on my hard drive is to organize all my data. So you notice I created a folder over here called telecommuting, okay? And all the work that I've been doing since I started telecommuting is on this folder. So I have a dedicated folder for my online classes, which I'm going to open now. I have a subdivision on the computer training, the professional development, and of course, I'm going to scroll through my computer trainings and look at all the training we have over here. So the last one, kind of one before the last one, is where I have my data file, okay? So exchanging data between Access and Excel. It's always important that you organize your data on your hard drive so you can easily go back and find your data when you need to. All right. So even on this folder, I still have a subfolder for my data, okay? And then I finally got to the location where I have the file that I just shared with you before, okay? So remember, this is the names Excel file that have the 200 names. So once I select the file and I click on Open, okay, I'm ready to go to the next step. So I'm gonna click OK. Once again, you select your file. This time we're using option number one, then you click OK, and then we move on, okay? So now, Access is now communicating with Excel. So Access is able to see that file and give you a preview of the file that is in Excel. Remember the first BSc ID, 1038, Richard Brown? So he's right there on line number one. So this is all I need to do over here. I'll just skip to the next step. So I'm going to click next. Okay. And this step is very important over here because you notice that the first row over here is really not data. You don't have an actual BSc ID on row number one. What you have there is just a column heading. Okay. So you got to make sure that you tell Access that your data contains column heading. If it does, I mean, if it doesn't, then you don't have to worry about this. But you see our data over here has headings on the first row. So you have to check that box. All right. Once you do so, you can move on to the next step over here. Okay. And this is also very important because what's going to happen here is Access is going to look at each one of your columns of data and it's going to try to decide what type of data you're bringing over from Excel. So if I click on the last column over here, you see the field name, and then you see over here the data type. So Access is able to match this column with the proper data type, because you do have text over here, right? You don't have numbers, you don't have dates. All you have is text. So short text is the appropriate data type for this column, for the first one as well. Now, if I look at the BSC ID, okay, even though the BSC ID is made out of numbers, I don't want Access to treat my BSC ID data as numbers. Why not? Well, the answer is simple. You don't wanna make your data a numeric data unless you're gonna do calculations with them. So you're never gonna be adding, subtracting, multiplying BSC IDs. Okay. So for that reason, you should select this data as short text. Okay, another reason I can give you over here, if you had a BSC ID that starts with a 0 instead of a 1, then the 0 will be removed if you choose numbers as the data for that particular BSC ID. Okay, another example of data that looks like numbers but should be treated as text is phone numbers, zip codes, social security numbers, and so on. So another thing that I want to do over here, I want this data to be indexed. So in other words, it's going to be sorted, but also I want to make sure that no duplicates come with this data, okay? And I don't want to have a duplicate because I don't want to have two people with the same name. I'm sorry, I don't want to have two employees with the same BSC ID, okay? So that's what I meant there. So I'm just going to click next, and I'm going to go to the I believe this is the last step over here, okay? All you need to do over here is just to determine which one of these fields is your primary key, okay? So now for those of you who are not that familiar with Microsoft Access, the concept of a primary key is something that we use in Microsoft Access to uniquely identify our data. So every time you are creating a table, Access expects you to have one of these fields as your primary key, okay? And the fields that are more suitable for that purpose are those fields that contain information that is never repeated, okay? And by that, I mean, look at the BSC ID. Take a look at the first one, 1038, okay? That BSC ID belongs only to Richard Brown. There is no other name over here that is related to the BSC ID. So I can say that the BSC ID is a unique entry on this table. And for that reason, I'm going to tell Access that I'm going to choose my own primary key, and I'm going to designate the BSC ID as my primary key. Okay? Now, first name. If I say that the first name is going to be my primary key, that will be a bad choice. Okay? Because if I make the first name as a primary key, I'm also saying that names cannot be duplicated on this entry. Okay, and what are the chances that you are going to have only one Richard on your group? So you don't pick data that is more likely to appear more than one time as your primary key. So BSC ID is a perfect choice for this table. This is a very interesting table because you could also say, well, the email is unique, right? So there's not going to be other email than Richard, associated with Richard than richard.brown@nyct.com. And yes, even though this is unique, I'm going to still go with the BSC ID. Why? Because it's more likely that there is more data out there that relates to the BSC ID of an employee rather than the email or the phone number. Okay, so now that I have chosen my primary key, I can move on and click next. Okay, and finally, the last step, I can name the table that I'm importing. I can give it any name. I can go with the name that shows over here, which I'm going to do. So I'm just going to click finish. And what's going to happen is once I click finish, you see this name is going to be added to the collection of tables. All right. So let me go ahead and click finish. And once I do so, also you have the option to save these steps. Okay. So if you feel that you're going to be doing this over and over, you're always going to be importing this table into Access, You can save those steps so the next time around you can go a little bit faster. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be importing this table again, so I'm not going to save those steps. I'm just going to close. And what I want to show you now is that our database now have a new table. And if I double click on this table and you see the information over here, these are the 200 people that I brought over from Microsoft Excel. Okay, once again, first one, Richard. If I go all the way down, the last one over here is Mr. George Carone, but there are 200 records over here that I just brought from Excel. Okay, very simple process. Let me close over here. So once again, it all starts from external data. You go to new data source, and then you follow the steps from there. Okay, but now that you have the data in Access, so how do you use the data now? Okay, because remember, this data is different from the data that I have on the TVL names. Okay, so now how do I move those names from the names table over to TVL names? Okay, different ways to do it. I'm going to take a very short quick approach today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this TVL names table. I'm just going to do a right click on the table, and I'm going to select the delete option over here. And I'll say, yes, I want to delete it. And I want to delete the relationship that goes with the table as well. And now this names table, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it. Okay. Very clever, huh? So I just deleted one, and then I keep the one that has all the information. All I need to do is just rename it, okay? And because this table is feeding the form attendance, now when the analyst opens up the attendance form, and then he finally does the last person that took the Microsoft Planner class. So let me go back to September 10, okay? So this is the last one. Remember, the BSc ID for this person was 100, 191. So now when I tap out of the BSc ID, voila, the name shows over there. Once again, why is that happening? Because now 100 and 191, this particular BSc ID is now found on the table's name because we imported this data from Excel. All right, isn't that great? This is going to save the analyst much more time from now on. Yes, I know it took us a little bit of time to go and get the data because, you know, it's a training session, so I have to go slow and I have to show you the steps. Okay, but once you know how to do this, then go and quickly do it. And from now on, you're going to be saving a lot of time. Okay, you're not going to be duplicating data. You're going to avoid data redundancy. Okay. And that is great. All right. So now let me close this form over here, because remember, there were some other options over here that I have to show you. Okay. Now, bringing data from Excel is great. Okay. So you have the names now, all the 200 names over here. Okay. But let me put this question over here. What if a new employee joins this particular department? Okay. So there is a new person now. Okay. And eventually you're going to have to bring over the new person over here, right? Now, the question is, how do they do the updates on this department? Okay, because there are several options. So one option may be somebody goes back to the names table. Let's say that the names table is on a shared location. So they go back there, they open the Excel file, all right? And now they just add the new name for this department. So someone will go over here and enter the BSc ID, a new BSc ID for this employee. So let's say the new employee has a BSc ID of 104090, okay? And let's say this person's name is Richard. Yes, a lot of Richards on this department. Last name, Sanon, okay? And then the email is richard.sanon@nyct.com. Okay. Now, let's say the phone number for this person is 646. Let's just make it easy to remember, 777-7777. And let's say that this person comes in as a senior director. Okay, so now there is a new name added to the file. Okay, added to the Excel file. Now let me go over here and save this information. So the information has been updated on the Excel file. Question to you: if I go and open this table, the names table that have the data that I brought over from Excel, am I going to see the name of Richard Shannon over here? Yes or no? Okay, so you can put your answer on the Q&A. Yes or no? Am I going to see Richard Shannon as part of the TVL names? What are people saying, Maritas?
You have both yes and no as answer.
Oh, very good. All right, so we got a split decision today. All right?
Yes, we do.
So let me give you the answer. Let's go and see. I'm going to open up TVL names and I'm going to scroll all the way down. And once I reach the end, oh, Richard is not here. Okay. So those of you who said, no, he's not there. So I guess you got the idea that once the data is brought over to Access, now is separated from Excel, right? So it's no longer, it doesn't synchronize automatically. Okay. So if you wanted to see the new name, you will have to redo the process. And now you may be saying, but wow, how many times am I going to be doing this? Okay. Is it that every time that they add a new employee, then I have to bring the data over? That could be one way, but probably you're not going to like to do that so much. So I'll give you another alternative over here. So let's say that instead of bringing the data from Excel and having it in Access, you're going to create a link. You're going to create a table that is always looking at the data in Excel. Okay. And that's one of the other options that you saw over there. So let me go back to new data source. And now we say, I'm going to bring a file from Excel, but this time I just want to create a link. Okay. I just want to link to the Excel file. And the process is very similar. You still have to browse to select the file. So I'm going to go back to names. Okay. But just keep in mind, I'm using the last option over here. Option number 3. You go through the steps. They're very similar. You just click next and you indicate that you do have column headings. And then you click next again. And then at the end, you can name your table. Okay. So once again, we're creating a table, but this table is just having a connection to Excel. So if the data changes, then you can see it over here. Let me say names on Excel file. Okay. So that will give you a little bit of an indication of what type of data you have on this table. So once again, it shows as a table. You can see over here, right? But you also see the icon, the Excel icon. And this little blue arrow over here means that you're just looking at the data on the Excel file. So if I open up this file, okay, and I scroll all the way down, now you see Richard, okay? Now you see Richard because you're always going to be looking at the data that is in Excel, okay? So this data is really not in Excel. You cannot change it. If you see that there is an error over here with a phone number, you cannot go there and change the phone number, okay? Because all you're doing is you're looking at the data in Excel, okay? So that's another option. It could be more convenient. It all depends on how the data flows on your department, okay? So if it is the case that, this spreadsheet gets updated, you probably want to go with the link option, okay? But here's another situation that also may happen on your department, okay? It could be that, they started with an original list of names, and now every time that new employees join the department, they create another Excel file, okay? And if that is the case, then let me show you this new employees table over here, because this is a very similar spreadsheet, but now there are 50 employees on this table, as you can see. And these are new employees that joined after the original 200. Okay, so if this is the case, that, every time there is new data, they put it into a new table, then you have an option to just append or to add this data to a table that already exists in Access. Okay. And that is option number 3. So I'm going to close over here. And once again, we're going to bring this data. Okay. 50 new employees, starting with Logan Johnson, and the last one being Jordan Sannon. Okay. So I'm going to close this file and I'm going to go back to Access. And what we're going to do in Access again, we're going to repeat the process. Go to New Data Source, go to From File, and select Excel. But this time around, we're going to use option number 2. Okay. And that means we're going to append. We're going to copy data from Excel to a table that already exists in Microsoft Access. Now, please be very careful over here once you select the table that you're taking the data to. Okay. I made this mistake all the time. Okay. If I leave it with attendance, then I'm going to bring names over to attendance. No, I want to bring that information over to the TVL names. Okay. Still, I have to browse and select the new spreadsheet, which is new employees, right? So once I select it, once I do these 2 choices over here, I can click OK. All right. And now you're seeing, remember the first one is Logan Johnson. Just click next as we did before. Notice that this time around, you don't have to select, you don't have to tell that the first row contains column headings. Why not? Because Access noticed that the column headings over here match the field names for the TVL names table that's already in Access. So that's one thing that you can skip. You go next, and you just got to make sure that you confirm that you're putting the information on the right table. And once you are finished over here, you close this window. And now if I open the TVL names, let me open it up for you. So remember we started with 200, but we just appended, we just added another 50. So if you look at the very bottom over here, it indicates that there are indeed 250 users now on the table. Okay, so there you have it. 3 different scenarios, 3 different options. Which one you're going to use, it depends on your needs. Okay, I just wanted to show you how we see that working on Access. You can bring data in Excel on 3 different ways. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to close the database. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint presentation, and I could just say that I completed learning objective number 1 because I did show you how to import data, append, and create a link. Okay, so what I like to do now is I like to put a question over here. So let me bring up a polling. So I have a question that I want to ask you now. So on the right side of your screen, I'm asking you these 2 questions. Can one append data from Excel into an existing data access table? It's a yes or no. So reach for your mouse, give me the answer. Question number 2, can one create an access table that is linked to an Excel file? Yes or no? Submit your answers. And while you're doing that, I'm going to check with Marites and see if we have questions over there, Marites, on the Q&A.
Hi, Rafa. Yeah, somebody is asking a very nice question. It says, I noticed that when you imported the Excel files, the 2 files you imported had different file extension. Why? What's the difference between one and the other?
Oh, so let me bring back the 2 files. Wow, good eyes over there. Wow. Well, the polling is closing right now, but let me just answer this question because it's really good. Yeah, so somebody noticed that the names file had the extension XLSM, while the new employees had the XLSX. So the first one over here refers to a file in Excel that has macros in it. Okay, so I may have I may have created some macros or write some VBA routines on this file. So that's why it was saved as a macro file. Okay. Macros, well, macros is something that we also teach. We have that we had that on schedule or before we push it down. But by the way, at the end of the webinar, we're going to give you a chance to let us know which topics you will be more interested. You will be interested in, in attending, which topics you want us to give you training on. So, somebody have macros in mind. So we're going to give you a chance to put that information there. All right. Yeah, but that's the answer to that. So the first one is a macro. The second one is a regular Excel file. So let me go back and see how we did with the polling questions. And let me share those questions with you. So can you append? Yes, you can. I show you how. Can you create? Yes. Beautiful. All right. So let me clear this over here and let me save the polling questions and let me save the results. Want to get a copy of this. And let's move on with now another part of the training. So now we're going to go into Excel. Okay. Remember, once you go to Excel, it's because you go to Excel because you want to analyze data. So let me take you over to Excel and we'll open a database, an Access database from Excel. But before we do that, let me show you which database we're going to work with right now. So another database very similar to the previous one, but this one, okay, had the same tree table, but this is a database that we are maintaining in our training group. So we want to see, who is coming to our classes. So how many people we're training. So if you notice the attendance information over here, okay, it's a little bit bigger than the other one. We already have 3,517 records over here. So on this attendance table, I know who was on the class. I know how long the class took. I know how you joined to our class, if you were using your cell phone, your computer, etc., etc. Now, if you notice over here on this attendance table, I only have the BSc ID and the class ID. If I wanted to know who is this person, the person with this BSc ID, I also have to make a connection to the names table, okay? So keep that in mind because as you start analyzing your data in Excel, let me just open Excel now. As you start analyzing your data in Excel, you gotta make sure that you bring the proper information over to Excel, okay? Don't just leave one table and don't bring the other if you feel that that table is necessary. Now, how do you bring data over to Excel from Access? Very similar process as we did before. In this particular case, you have to go over to the data tab, okay? Once you go over to data, okay, you got two options over here, two icons that you go to. The first one, you get external data. The next one, you create a new query. So think about the first one as we did before, we're just importing data, okay? If you go with this one, the external data, then you're just going to do an import. You're going to bring all the data from Access and place it on Excel. If you follow this option over here, the new query, okay? So think about this as your link choice, okay? So you're gonna leave the data on, you're gonna leave the data in Access, but you're gonna be able to see it in Excel. So that way, if the data changes in Access, you'll still be able to see those changes over here on Excel, okay? So let me show you option number one. It's very simple. You just go to Get External Data. You click on Access. Data is coming from Access, and all you have to do is just browse to the allocation as I did before. This time around, however, I'm gonna go straight to a shortcut that I put over here so I can easily reach my attendance number 2 database that I just showed you. So I'm gonna select my database, click open, and look at this. I mean, this is amazing how these two applications talk to each other. So as soon as you tell Access, as soon as you tell Excel, the Access database that you want to bring data from, then it shows up the tables on that database. And remember what I was saying, most likely you're gonna need the 3 of them, Okay, so yes, you can just pick one, click OK, and only bring the attendance, but most likely you're going to need all of them. And for that reason, you have an option over here that enables you to select multiple tables. Okay, not just one table, but you can select several ones. So if I enable this option over here, then I can check the attendance, classes, and names, and then I click OK. And when I click OK, look at my screen over here. Well, I got several options over here. And this is how these applications keep on changing. If I had been doing this exercise like 3 years ago, I would have probably seen only the option to just bring the table. So now we have all these additional tools to do data analysis, such as pivot tables and pivot charts and some other options. So I'm just going to go easy over here and just say, I want to see those tables right here on my Excel file. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, and look what's going to happen now. The files are coming from Access, and they are presented right here on my Excel file. Okay, so look at the several spreadsheets that were created over here. Okay, the last one is the one that has the names. So I'm going to double click down here to rename it, call it names. If I click on spreadsheet number 3, this one have the name of the classes. So what I'm doing here is double clicking and then just giving a name to those tabs over there, so it will make it easier for me to navigate my data. So this one over here is the attendance. Okay, so I'm going to call it such. And now I have this data that I can manipulate, that I can analyze, okay, that I can work with. All right, what can I do with this data? Well, I can sort it, right? I can go here and do a sort. I can also go there and filter my data, okay? I can also create subtotals. So how many people log in from Windows IE? How many log in from cell phone? All these functions, I could do it now that I have the data in Microsoft Excel, okay? And by the way, next week, we're gonna have another webinar, and Maritza is gonna be training us on working with data in Excel. So she's gonna go over all these functions that I was just mentioning, filtering, sorting, creating subtotals, and so on. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how to bring the data from Excel over to Access. So now you can manipulate that data in Excel. Okay, so remember, Excel, you're going to use it for data analysis. Access, you're going to use it to store your data. Okay, but I also said that in Excel, you also have another option over here under the data tab. So let me once again highlight the data tab, because this is where everything starts from as far as bringing data over to Excel. So let me go back to data, okay? And now let's use the second option over here. Remember, I call this the link. I'm gonna link to my Access database. Now, I'm gonna open another file over here. Let me open a new workbook, okay? And I will probably close the other one. I don't want to get confused with these two. So let me close this one. I'm not going to save it. So let me remain on the other Excel file. Okay. Once again, where do I go to in order to bring data? I guess everybody's saying data, data. So I'll go to data. Yes. And now let's take a look at this new query option. Okay. So now, instead of bringing the data, I'm just going to make a link to an I was going to Excel, but I'm in Excel, so I'm going to go to databases, right? So I'm going to bring the database from, I'm going to bring the data from a Microsoft Access database. So that's what I select. All right. And once again, I told you I don't want to be browsing again. So I created the shortcut and I go to data, and right there, I'm going to find my attendance database. Okay. I find it. I click on import, and it's very similar to getting external data. I'm going to see a window over here. And this one is even better because it lets me preview my data before I bring it over. So you notice that, again, the three tables show up there, but now I can click. And as I click, I have a little preview. Of course, you probably know what is on your on the database, right? So that's the reason you're bringing it over to Excel. But it's nice that you can preview your data before you do the link. Okay. You also have the option to select multiple items. Okay. And yes, I do want to select all of them. So I put a check mark. And once I click, oh, this is really interesting because before I bring the data over to Excel, I can do some cleanup. Okay, I can decide. Well, I don't want to bring all the records or all the fields, only certain fields. So that's the edit option that you have over here. Okay, I don't want to give you too much. I'm not even going to show the screen to you, okay? Because all I'm trying to do over here is just show you how to bring the data, okay? If you want to see how to clean up your data before you start analyzing it, there is another class, and it sounds like I'm just promoting my class, but this is really true. We're going to have a class on Power BI Desktop, okay? If you join us on that class, then I will show you how you can clean up your data before you bring it over to do a data analysis. Okay. So today I'm just simply going to click on load. And when I do so, this data is going to come from Access. It's not going to show over here on the Excel cells as it did when I get the external data. It's just going to be right here on the side. Okay. So you see this window where I can go and put my mouse over there and see a preview of that data. Okay. But how do I use it now? You may be wondering. Okay. So I'm going to do a very quick demonstration over here because one way that you have to analyze this data is simply by going to this insert section over here and create something called a pivot table. Okay. Pivot tables are very powerful and yet so easy to create. All I need to do is just hit the pivot table, say that I want to put my pivot table on cell A1, and then just click OK. And once I do so, look at this. I got those tables from my databases available to me so I can do any data analysis that I want to. If I just want to see how many people I have trained, remember that's information that we have here on the attendance table. So all I need to do is just open it up, get the BSC ID, put it on the values section, and look at it, 3,517. Remember I showed you that number of records? That is how simple you can work with these pivot tables. Now, if I say, well, I want to see this broken by classes, by the name of the class. So the name of the class is not on the attendance, is it? It's on the class's name. So now you can bring the class name, drop it into the rows. See, it's just a drag and drop, and look at this beautiful and simple data analysis that we can do with pivot tables. If you're interested in pivot tables, let us know so we can also put something together for you. Okay. But as far as my presentation, this is all I said that I was going to do today. So if I get back to my PowerPoint presentation, I can just check that indeed I show you how to bring data from Access to Excel by importing tables and creating a query. Okay, so we're going to end up with a question over here. Let me just put another question over here because now we want to ask you this question. Okay, so we want to hear from you what additional training you'll be interested on as offering to you. So I'm going to open up the polling over here. You're going to have a minute or so to give us your answer. So if you click and just type on this box over here, where it says type your answer, if you go and then just give us, different topics of or applications that you like to receive additional training on. Okay, so it's going to run there for about a minute or so. And then we're going to go over and check on this data. Okay. And while you're doing that, let me just uh, make sure that I save this information over. Oh wow, it's 2 o'clock now. So all right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close this poll. We'll look at the results later. You can also reach us via email. I'm going to leave you with the email over here that you can reach out to us. So that is e-consult@nyct.com. Okay. You can also send questions directly to Eval, and her email shows over here at the bottom. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you in another Transit University session. So goodbye.